katoa. We seek wisdom, understanding, insights into the views and circumstances of others, strength to seek what we believe in, humility to accept the combined decisions of others, patience, good humour at all times, tolerance and courtesy while working in the best interests of our community. Apologies. I have received apologies from Councillor Bartley. Are there any other apologies? If not, I will move that we accept the apology from Councillor Bartley.
I'll second that.
And it's been seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Carried. Declaration of interest. Are there any members of the governing body that have any interest that they need to declare in relation to today's agenda? If not, we come to confirmation of the minutes. We have one set of minutes to confirm. The 25th of October. The motion, I'll move that the ordinary minutes of the meeting be a true and correct record. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Simpson. No discussion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no. Carried. Petitions, there are none. Public input. There has been one request declined, and that was on the basis of, firstly, it didn't meet the required time frame, and secondly, the subject matter was the responsibility of the Environment and Community Committee. We have, however, two requests that have been approved, and they both deal with the item number 9 on the agenda, dealing with the Auckland Dockline tram. So I'm proposing that we get both presenters to come up together. They will present separately, but then we can do the questions together. I think that makes most sense. So if I could ask Puneet Dal to come back, and welcome back, Puneet. Remember your last presentation, which was very good, and Jeff Grobin. Is Jeff here? Yeah, great. What I'm proposing is that each of you, we've received your documents. Thank you very much. You've both done a very thorough job, and we're very well informed as a result of your presentations. So if you could speak to, rather than read out those presentations, you might want to do your PowerPoints, and then we'll open it up for questions afterwards. As you know, there is a resolution, a recommendation that we receive the report from Panuku. Panuku is the decision maker in this regard, but that does not mean that this council cannot send its opinion to Panuku in terms of their proposed choice, and it may not be the option that Panuku has foreshadowed that it wants to adopt. They are the decision maker, but as a governing body, we can send our opinion to Panuku and ask them to consider that. So there may well be changes to the way in which our resolution on item 9 is worded. Puneet, if I can ask you to lead off, please.
Okay, thank you, sir, and thank you, councillors, for letting us be here from Keep the Auckland Dockline Tram Running. My name is Puneet, and I quite simply want to tell you why we want to keep the tram running. First and foremost, it's about heritage. Heritage is something that this council and the people of this city have again and again said is one of the most important things that they want to retain for the city of Auckland. The original Waterfront Plan 2011, which drew up 13 strategic directives, mentioned in at least 5 of them heritage and culture to be preserved. And that was a promise made by the people for the people. The City Centre Master Plan in 2012 spoke specifically about heritage and how heritage makes a place unique and should not be lost. The tram gives all of those things in spades, so we want you to please think about that. Oh, have I turned it off? Sorry. Okay, we want to talk to you about the public mandate. The tram is popular and loved by all. That is a fact that we can demonstrate to you. It is actively supported by thousands of Aucklanders, both in 2011 in the original waterfront plan and again today in our own petition, which now has hit 1,400. We are the majority, councillors and mayor. We are not a fringe. Please don't let that be an argument that's presented to you. Democracy is here and it's sitting right in front of you. The active voices of dissent on this matter who have put their hands up are barely a handful, and they do not come from the wide array that our voices come from. We have all colours, all types, all people. The voices of dissent are literally 3 people, and they come from one organisation. We don't know their motivation. Panuku senior management will have you believe that the Wynyard Heritage Tram is now a useless and expensive relic on a loop to nowhere. The original promise, councillors, is that a low-impact, frequent, high-volume transit service between Britomart Transport Centre and Wynyard Quarter be made. The current loop that exists in Wynyard Quarter was the planned first step of that promise, councillors. The loop was originally designed and intentionally designed to carry both heritage and modern light rail. Here we see an example of the E-Class Bombardier used frequently in Melbourne, and to the right we see our heritage tram. They can share the same track. That was always the original plan and the original promise. Please remember that. We must remember this original promise, because if we rip up this loop in Wynyard Quarter, that promise evaporates, councillors. And promises matter. In page 1 of the Auckland long-term plan, and so I gird myself with the promises of yesteryear and my hopes for tomorrow and my plans for today. The solution. Auckland Transport and Panuku must respect the mandate. They must. And their numerous promises to reinstate that which they have removed at great cost, councillors, at great cost. Promises matter. The tram shed that exists in Wynyard Quarter must remain in situ. There's no reason to remove it. And should it be removed, it's very easy in the deal to make sure there are enough funds accrued to fund the removal. Our message to AT and to Panuku is don't break it if you can't fix it. And at the moment, in their report, they're saying we broke it and now we want you to fix it. No, don't break it if you can't fix it. The thing was working. The money. Actually, we've done our numbers. We'll give it all to you. We have many, many business people in this movement. And we believe that we can make a net operating profit of $100,000 per annum for the current heritage loop. That rises up to $700,000 per annum with Hopcard technology and the connection to Britomart. The reinstatement of the track and the current infrastructure, we believe, is circa $350,000 maximum. Don't let any other numbers be used to, honestly, to sway you. We can show you why. We believe that there will be a return on investment on this in 2 to 3 years, councillors. We've got the money covered. The conclusion. The history and the public support for keeping the Auckland Dockline tram is overwhelming. The majority is speaking to you. The current loop is critical to achieving the overarching promise to connect Britomart to Wynyard. Rip up the track and the vision dies both for modern light rail and for heritage. The opposing vision is to turn these 1922 heritage trams into hot dog stands. And please, councillors, the world we live in, there's only so much iron ore. We can't keep going into the earth, digging up the iron. Think in 1922 of those men and women who went and took up the iron, made it into steel, made it into drive trains, and created transportation. We can't throw these things away. If we keep throwing these things away, we'll have to go to Mars. In conclusion, councillors, sir, the people of Auckland are standing up and we are speaking to you. Please hear our voices. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Puneet, and thank you for keeping pretty much within time too. I was going to give you a bit of leeway, but you were concise and to the point, and the presentation is very helpful, so thank you. Jeff, can I get you please now to do your presentation, and you might like to just say a little bit about your organisation as well.
Right, well, first up, I have a paralysed vocal cord, so if it sounds like I'm yelling at you, I probably am, just in case you're wondering. So the Auckland Electric Tramways
Jeff,
Trust...
just because of the problem, if you can bring your mic a little bit closer, so it's
Just
really
about to do
important to
that.
hear what you have to say.
There we go. Right, so the Auckland Electric Tramways Trust, as it says right there, was established with the paramount aim of conserving for public benefit New Zealand's electric tramway heritage, with a focus on Auckland's tramway heritage. And there we have a tram, strangely enough, sitting outside of Britomart from 1953. I'm intimately familiar with that tram because I actually rescued it from being destroyed about 34 years ago, and it's currently sitting in a warehouse in Henderson, along with 2 others. So the background to the current situation with Wynyard Quarter. In May 2015, Auckland Transport dug the light rail loop line up, and they've left it broken. It won't be reinstated until around 2020. In October 2018, Panuku Developments dug up the tram line to the tram barn because it was on somebody else's land after they sold it. The light rail loop line around Wynyard Quarter is currently broken in 2 locations, and where the tram barn sits has always been recognised as a development site, and Panuku knows this, as did everyone else when it was built. Okay, so Panuku's got several options, and we'll deal with them in reverse order. Option 4 involves the ceasing of the tram operations permanently. This operation would not require any CapEx funding. Well, found some holes in that argument. Returning the leased tram to Australia will actually cost around $230,000, not $50,000 as stated by Panuku. And there's reasons for this, because they've got to reinstate it back into the condition they received it in. For safety reasons, the remaining overhead equipment in Wynyard Quarter must be removed, and the cost for this is around $40,000. Also, that's identified in the Panuku document, and just to go with the agenda items, there is a paper I sent through yesterday which looks like this, which is a point-for-point counterfactual against the agenda item to make it easy to find. So removing the distributor loop line will cost around $600,000, plus traffic management and road closures. So the real cost of option 4 is closer to $1 million than 0. It doesn't include any associated disruption. Next one, there we go. Okay, Panuku's option 3, reinstate the full loop. So their costs, they come up with this, which is just to reinstate the line going to the tram shed that they had to lift because of West 1 development. They proposed $660,000 for the reconnecting the existing tram barn. We actually pointed out to them they did not have this peer reviewed. They then went ahead and had a peer review done just to satisfy us. Then they ignored it. So we went and had the cost of actually reconnecting the tram barn costed up. And as Puneet says, if you actually add a contingency of 10% in it to the numbers, you end up with around $350,000. So as you can see right there, $35,500 for poles and overhead, track work, $250,000, traffic management, and engineering consultancy and design. Doesn't include the regulatory AT permitting by AT, which is probably about $300,000. That's a joke. I'm sure AT doesn't charge that much for a permit. Anyway, option 3, how do you pay for it? Panuku decision paper, dated 18 October, says there's $1 million contained within an existing Streetworks contract. An earlier Panuku information paper states that the cost of putting Dawley Street back together is actually $550K. It's a variance of $450,000. So basically, it would appear that there's enough money, based upon this information, to be able to put the 2 back together and reinstate what you've got right now without having to put any more money in, because it's already there. Now, given that the $550K comes from Panuku, it could be $550K or it could be $5 million. It's hard to tell with them. Right, oh, one too far. Come back. There we go. Okay, they come up with a number which is magical because it's been loosely determined by an independent quality surveyor and peer reviewed by another independent quality surveyor. So no expertise in tramway operations was injured in the making of that price. The bottom line is that Normally what you do is you'd identify the sites, you do a design, and you'd have that quantity surveyed, because then you know you've got something that's fit for purpose. So there are no exact barn locations identified, therefore there can be no definitive designs, and the cost of relocation cannot be accurately estimated. And of course, the most important thing, given that the tram barn relocation was always going to happen at some stage, why haven't they planned for this? And the fine print says, is this the same independent quantity surveyor that came up with the figures for option 3, being $660,000 as opposed to $320 to $50? Operating the tramway. We did some rough numbers and worked out that based upon what the tram line did for the 21 months it actually operated consistently, it worked out to be a conversion ratio of visitors to Wynyard Quarter to about 6% to people taking tram rides. Now at that time there were no workers in Wynyard Quarter. So we've come up with a fairly simplistic methodology to estimate what the revenue would be. So for 2020, we're saying, all right, let's assume it's $2.50 for an adult, $1.25 for kids, and there's an all-day ticket. So even just running what you've got, potentially there's a revenue opportunity of $300,000-ish. Now, we can do some more research on that, but it's actually predicated upon information that's publicly available on the website. So therefore, Panuku's claims of OPEX expense aren't really real either, because they're not predicated on anything. They're not underpinned by a business plan of any sort. It's just what they have to spend this year for paying someone to be there and for maintaining what they've got. Here we go. Oh, that went the wrong way. That way. Okay, so the information in Panuku's paper to scrap the dock line tram is incomplete, predicated upon incomplete assumptions, and lacks proper technical expertise. Its value for council to make an evidence-based decision upon is highly questionable. That's my opinion, and I'm happy to say that. The disruption to the dockline tramway over an extended period of more than 5 years has seen the Heritage Tram service carry a mere 126,000 passengers. Motets tramway conversely carries 200,000 a year. That's how broken the system's been. It's been unavailable, so no one takes it. The only option to mitigate the cost per passenger, the investment of council to date is $16,171,000 and $356,000. Or you could have just paid each passenger $127.39 and told them to stay at home. So the only option to mitigate that cost per passenger is to operate it and to keep it going. Scrapping the light rail in Wynyard Quarter sends the wrong message to the people of Auckland. Developing the line as a heritage and transport link between Britapart and the heart of Wynyard Quarter supports Council's objectives of sustainability and zero emissions, as well as better transport, cleaner beaches and a protected environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Jeff, and for getting through it in the time that you were allocated. I'm suggesting that we take a little longer for questions today, because I think it is an important issue. And we're all aware that if Panuku decides to cancel, to kill the tram line, it's forever. And nobody around this table wants to make that decision without the certainty that it's the right decision, and I, for one, don't have that certainty. But my first question is to Puneet. You talk about, you think that we could make a net operating profit of 100 to 700,000 per annum. Now, I am aware back in 2011, in 1 month, we made 52,000 on it. Now, that was an extraordinary time, Rugby World Cup, and that might be an outlier. But I really want to know how you've arrived at those figures. I think everybody around here feels that, you know, we're not going to be doing as poorly as we have recently, because there's a lot of circumstances that have caused that. But can you outline to us, you know, what your estimates of net operating revenue might be and how you arrived at them?
Yes, sir. First of all, the Rugby World Cup wasn't an outlier in our opinion. If you look at the area now between Britomart and Wynyard and the amount of activity that's going on, and if you count the people, it's a significant number. And so the way we did it, we first of all spoke to Christchurch, because all the expertise is in Christchurch, and we spoke to our good friends who run the trams. They told us about how they got really experienced operators to run their trams. They actually started with Shotover Jet. They said it wasn't really something maybe for the Christchurch Transport Council, it was for an experienced operator. We then did the passenger numbers, people numbers in Wynyard Quarter, and then we looked at Britomart to Wynyard. We believe that without the hop card, we think in 1 year, given where Wynyard is right now, we think we'll get 150,000 to 200,000 users on the tram, particularly if the buses, which create amazing congestion. My son plays in the park at the bottom end of Wynyard, and the buses now run through there, and it's a nightmare. And if the tram is what's taking people from Victoria Park down to the bottom end of Wynyard, we're going to get a lot of passengers hop off the bus and hop on the tram. So we believe that at that point, we'll come to a net profit of around 100K with just the loop and those passenger numbers at around $2 a hit. Once you put the hop card in, the hop philosophy will really work. I know I have a hop card and I use it religiously. And when you have the hop card, you stop thinking about when you're traveling, just like with your Uber or your Lime scooter, which I use a lot. And so we then believe that the numbers will go up to about 250,000 users based on the number of residents, the number of people alighting on the buses from Victoria Park, the number of tourists coming through. We've got a 7-star hotel coming up, and we can even make, we've spoken to Christchurch, a possible tourist fund where it might be $20 for those guys. That 7-star hotel, the number of bedrooms in there. Then, when we go for the big daddy, and we have that Britomart link, oh my gosh. I mean, you just got to go there and see the number of taxis that are just lined up outside by the cruise ships, sitting there, just ferrying people down Fanshawe Street. You just got to look down Fanshawe Street at the number of people walking or on their Lime scooters or taking an Uber. I had a meeting just yesterday in a new lane called Schnickel Lane. I wanted to get the link bus to College Hill. I walked a little bit, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I need a tram. I was like, oh yeah, I'm supporting that. At that point, sir, our estimated number flow is 500,000 users per annum. At that point, at $2 a hit, we estimate a revenue of $1 million and an OPEX of 300. And that's how we come to our net operating profit of 700.
Okay. Thank you very much. My second question to both of you actually is, you both use similar figures. Option 3 is obviously another option that some of us are thinking about. 320, 350,000 or 360,000, you're saying it's about half the cost of what Panuku has estimated as its lower figure. Can you, you know, after sitting around this council table for a couple of years, I've become sceptical about any bloody statistic. But can you give us an idea of how you've arrived at that statistic and why you think your statistic, your figure, should be preferred by us to the one that Panuku has put in front of us? Either of you, you both.
I'll go with that one.
Yeah.
That's actually really quite easy. We asked.
Yeah, asked who?
We asked the companies who built the tramway in 2010, 2011, being Cole Electrical and Jesmond Construction, and they very kindly gave us quotes.
We also went to Melbourne and asked Yarra Trams, and we also went to Victoria and asked Bendigo Trams, and they both independently came up with a kind of a $10,000 a metre kind of rule of thumb. And the point we really want to make on this is that in 2014, and I don't want to labour this point, but a quite secretive agreement was made between Willis Bond and Panuku, and a legal obligation was made between those two organisations to dismantle the tram, and was not declared or made public until just 3 months ago. Panuku will try to claim that they only came to the realisation this year that they had to dismantle the track and, oh, we don't have the money to put it back. Our very, very strong point is they knew in 2014, they carried out a quite secretive dismantling project, and every penny they're asking for is ludicrous. The $350,000 to replace the track fan should have been covered in the original deal with Willis Bond, and we will be seeking a payment from that deal to be put forward. We believe sincerely in our number of $350,000 from 3 separate independent tram specialists. We believe that then Panuku start talking about moving the tram barn. Their motivation for moving the tram barn, I don't want to go into, but We, the people, all 1,400, don't think it's the best of motivations. And if you leave the tram barn there, there's no cost. If you talk to Willis Bond and say, well, can you incorporate the tram barn into your design, which has been done on many sites, and we can give you sites of buildings where they've got a tram barn on the first floor and it actually becomes a tourist attraction. Or if they do a deal with Willis Bond for West 2, which has yet to be made, they can say to Willis Bond, look, if you want to move the tram barn, we have to take it from the deal. And I, sir, will negotiate that deal for you. I'm very good at negotiating.
We're getting a bit of an idea of that. Okay, let's get some questions around the table, and we'll probably try and take as many as we can in the next 10 minutes, quarter of an hour. Right. Filipina.
Thank you, Your Worship, and tēnā Cordura, gentlemen. Look, my question is around the options we have on our agenda, and it's around option 3. If we put the money aside and just have a look at the option, which obviously option 1 and 2, they're out of the picture. So I'm hoping that option 3 gets put up by somebody, because I will be supporting option 3 if it does. And I hope it does, because I want to get your opinion on that option, because it does get rid of we cease, it does get rid of we removing. There's no more trams in. So I just wanted to get your opinion on the 4 that we have, that 3, and hopefully somebody does put it up. I just want to get your opinion. Money aside, please.
I just want to say something, Councillor, for your ward. I did a walk of Wynyard Quarter 2 weeks ago. I invited Panuku to come and walk the quarter with me. They declined. I spoke to over 100 people. Do you know, I went to Sofitel in the viaduct, and I spoke to a worker there who came from your ward, and she said she has to drive into work, and it's very hard to park around Sofitel, because to get from your ward to Sofitel is extremely difficult. If she gets the train, and then she has to get from the train to Sofitel, the timing doesn't quite work, and she chooses to drive. She would be able to come on the train, hop on the tram, and go to Sofitel. And I spoke to about 20 or 30 people. In fact, the 100 people I spoke to, both, do you love heritage of the tram, and do you want a light rail transit from Britomart to Wynyard? All 100 said yes. I didn't even load the question. I didn't have to. The mandate for this is everybody wants the link from Britomart to Wynyard. The promise was made. The loop that exists was part of that promise, and it must not be ripped up. That's what we're trying to say.
Thank you.
Yep, just another question. So, in regards to that particular option, but my question is, geez, how can I put it? Thank you for the talk that we had just before this particular meeting, and the fact that you work with Pillars, because we all know the work that Pillars does.
Thank you.
So my question is, and this is based on what your PowerPoint said, if there is a willing for option 3 and it goes through, will you be at least okay if that happens?
I just need to clarify. Option 3 is to reinstate the loop.
Option 3 is...
Reinstate full original.
I'll leave it to His Worship.
Yeah. Option 3 is reinstate the full original loop and have the tram running for AC 36, yes, and then review its future.
Yeah.
Yes, we would be very happy with that. And we believe in the negotiation for West 2 between Willis Bond and Panuku. We, the people, want to be involved in that negotiation. We don't want to be locked out anymore. And we believe we can negotiate a bloody good deal to keep the tram there or move it somewhere really good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Wayne Walker.
Sure. I've got a few questions that I probably could ask of Panuku, but I'm going to ask you because the answers may be more direct. First off, just as far as the gauge is concerned, is it correct that the heritage gauge is the same as the gauge that we're proposing for light rail?
It is. It's the width of 2 Roman war horses' butts.
But it is the gauge that we're going to be using.
4 foot 8 and a half,
okay,
yep.
That's all I need to know. And secondly, just in terms of low carbon and emissions, are there any emissions from the
Passengers breathing out usually.
Okay, so
Then possibly
so
a
it's,
little of ozone, but that's about it.
so I'm making the assumption. Correct me if I'm wrong. So it's sustainable and it fits with the council's low carbon strategy. It doesn't generate any of the particulate emissions that
No.
we've got a massive problem with around downtown Auckland.
No, it doesn't.
Fantastic. And the other question that I've got just goes around your numbers. Have you shared your numbers with Panuku? Are they at odds with your numbers at all?
Well, the interesting thing here is that we haven't shared them with Panuku at this point in time, but we actually did require them to get a peer review done, which is this document here, because we pointed out they hadn't had that done on the relocation of the workshop track. It's from this peer review that those numbers are derived. So this peer review relates directly to option 3. There's been no peer review work done on option 2.
Okay, got that. And my last question just goes to the operating model. Quite obviously, you've pointed out a huge number of deficiencies around Panuku, and you've gone up through those point by point. Is there a better operating model? I mean, are we better to take this out of Panuku and have a model that could be some trust or other-based model that you and other supporters might be involved with that could be much more economical and much better?
I believe the answer to that question is Panuku is a property development organisation. They don't run tramways.
Sure.
And they've put the tramway under placemaking, which basically the person that they have running the tram is an extremely skilled individual. But because of the nature of the top-down structure of Panuku, he never gets consulted. So therefore, that there is no bi-directional information going backwards and forwards. He just gets told, because he's just the tram driver, the fact that he's the rail holder, or so the rail licence holder for the entire tramway.
Got that. And I'm sure our chief executive is picking up on a number of these points, so that's great. Thank you.
Yes, in Christchurch, they specifically decided not to go with the transport provider of the Christchurch Town Centre. They decided to go for an experienced operator who knew how to operate to go from attraction to attraction was the thought process in Christchurch. And I just want to talk about Christchurch. The tram is now the most photographed thing in Christchurch, together with the cathedral, and has become a loved icon. They started with a 1.5 kilometre loop in the 90s, and now they have many kilometres, and they're going from point to point, and it is an amazing attraction. Don't think Lime scooters are the only way to the future. Our past is the way to the future.
Okay, and my last question, Mr. Mayor, given that what we've seen, given what we've heard about Panuku, do you think that Auckland Council really needs to make a directive to Panuku to make these changes?
I want to rule that one out.
That's probably not for us to answer.
That's a leading question, and
I know it is.
And that's a question for us, not for them, Councillor. And
We
you know
the
it
people
well.
have
Councillor
struggled
Clothe, Councillor Clothe, you have the next question.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. Very good. I was not happy when the service was shut down, so I'd like to have it reinstated. However, I'm really interested on the question of would you guys be willing to form a trust and run this thing and obviously absorb all the potential liabilities that could come, but obviously hopefully it would be successful. Is that the model you are looking at? That
I can probably answer that one. There is a trust that already exists. Now the difficulty is the Auckland Tramways Trust, we have been preserving tramway components, and we're a member of the Council of Tramway Museums Australasia, as well as a member of France. We have put in requests for components from Melbourne in order to be able to facilitate the reconstruction and rebuilding of authentic Auckland heritage trams. And we also have more recently, thanks to the generosity of the Albert Eden Board, started the process of transferring a significant amount of documents and microfilm into a digital format. And we've started the process of CAD modelling these to be able to reconstruct the equipment that used to operate underneath Auckland's tramway system. So the biggest difficulty obviously is that obviously there is a significant level of skill just in our trustees. There's over a couple of 100 years of combined experience in how to do this. The key ingredient here, though, is that there would need to be a worked out strategy for phasing it over, and a worked out way to make sure that we didn't end up with a huge bill because of that phasing over process. So
we need the hop card technology, so Auckland Transport have to buy in. We need to be able to work with Panuku senior management and Auckland Transport after all the dust of this settles down. So we're going to need to offer olive branches. We can work as a trust. We can also tender this out to experienced operators who may, so we've got a couple of options there. And we're just trying to save the tram right now, but we feel confident one way or another we can run this thing. And when we make those numbers, we haven't fabricated those numbers. We've had lots of meetings about passengers and users and the area and how many people would use trams. We've talked to Victoria, we've talked to Melbourne, we've talked to Christchurch.
Yeah. Look, to be quite honest, the main thing I'm trying to get at, are you willing to take on the responsibility?
Yes.
Because, and any associated directors, whatever, because there's a big responsibilities, and what may seem simple at the start can end up with a lot of obligations and a lot of worry.
We hear you, and we're...
that's all,
we will.
all I'm really asking you about.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, look, I think with the concurrence of councillors, we've got a long list of people now, so can we try to work out what your main question is and ask that question? And if really urgently necessary, once up, but we're going to limit it to that. Councillor John Watson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I'll try and ask just the one question. And thank you for a very professional and compelling presentation, gentlemen. And thank you for these figures, because as the Mayor said, we do have an ongoing issue in this council with arriving at accurate figures. You have responded in part, Panette, but perhaps you could just elaborate a little bit your reference to we broke it, you fix it there. And I say that because in our report we have a rather innocuous reference to encroaching tram lines, and that's about it. Some of us aren't quite as well as informed as others about that notion of breaking and fixing, and that will be relevant in my instance anyway when it goes to apportioning of potential costs here.
Yes, sir. The tram loop was perfectly functioning. The heritage trams on there were perfectly good. Suddenly, in 2015, 7 metres of track was removed by Auckland Transport at the behest of Panuku. That's never been put back. Auckland Transport have given us 11 promises, 11 different times from 4 different senior managers that they promised to put that track back. The track fan that links the current barn to the road was removed at what we estimate possibly up to $1 million just 12 weeks ago. We knew nothing of this. We only discovered upon its removal that a legal obligation had been made in 2014 with the property developer, and there had been a pact that if Willis Bond, this is now a supposition because we don't have the documents, but we think that a pact was made that if you're going to get West 1, we don't want the tram. We think that that was the discussion that was had, but we can't yet prove that. And we believe that when that track fan was removed, it was done to give Willis Bond a little bit of extra land to build their luxury apartments, and we believe that it should have been incumbent on Panuku in 2014 when they made the deal with Willis Bond to have considered that and said to Willis Bond, if you don't want the tram and you want us to remove the track fan, we need to have some costs for putting it back. And Panuku never did that, and we want the money back from Panuku to do that. And what's more, we're saying it only costs 350 grand.
Thank you. Councillor Newman.
Yeah, I just wonder actually, I mean, you might be right on your numbers and you might not be, but I'm just wondering actually, is that the point fundamentally? If this is about place shaping, the most famous tram lines in the world arguably are in San Francisco. It is a significant part of the Mooney system, but it has to be subsidised, and it is subsidised because of the wider place shaping and the intrinsic value that it offers to the experience of San Francisco. So is part of the consideration here the wider place shaping benefit of this offering, and what role does that play in the consideration of any business case?
Two answers to that. First of all, the cable car is quite a different technology. It's under the ground technology, and it's very old in the sense of they have to, when they fix the cable car in San Francisco, they have to have this huge operation to fix these underground cables, hence the subsidies. Ours is a simple electric tram that works on very simple track and overhead. So the comparison in costs is quite different, sir. Secondly, yes, this is a place-shaping thing. Heritage is very important to this city, but it's also taking people from attraction to attraction. It has commuter value, transport value, it has conservation value. So if you're saying, is place-shaping a thing that makes a city attractive, is my house going to go up in value because of the tram? Yes, sir. I live in St Mary's Bay, and I'll probably get another $500,000 on my house.
We're looking at value capture at the moment, Puneet. So thank you for your offer, and I'll pass that on to our finance section. Councillor Richard Hills.
Yeah, thank you. Because we've been narrowed to one sort of question. So your figures. You talked about the buses. So at the moment, with the new network, we've got the City Link to Karangahape Road. That's every 8 minutes. We've got the St Luke's to Wynyard Quarter, which is every 15, and you've got the bus to GI Glen Innes, the 75, every 10 to 15. So you've got buses every 3 to 4 minutes there, and you're saying they slow the traffic down. And do you want us to remove those buses? I'm not finished my question yet. So the trams are obviously going to slow down all those buses and probably reduce the frequency on the whole network. The other thing you talked about is for say, councillors from the Monaco ward getting from Britomart to Wynyard Quarter as part of this, when that actually isn't part of this decision today, and that's millions, a lot more. So that's actually not going to affect that. And the bus from the shore, the buses from the shore, why would we walk an extra time to get to a tram where the buses are actually closer to the bus stops already? So I'm concerned about your figures, assuming all those things aren't in place already.
You start and I'll finish.
Okay, I love buses. I sit every day for 12 minutes at Victoria Park while the unmotivated driver gets off the Greenlink bus and waits for his colleague to get onto the Greenlink bus. The buses are valuable, and if you read the Auckland Transport Report, which talks about the Britomart to Wynyard link, it says that the tram is a vital addition to the bus network. The buses that currently go down Wynyard Quarter are a problem. That 3 to 4 minutes, when they go down the Jellicoe bit, it's quite narrow, it's got cobblestone sides, there is a park with, it's so popular now, there's never less than 100 kids.
I'm very aware I go down
so
there all the time, but are you removing
your question is the wrong
buses?
way round, in my opinion, sir.
Yeah.
It's not the tram that's slowing down the buses. It's the buses that are slowing down the people and the tram. Take the buses out to Vic Park, let people hop on the tram. And this will create a really safe, beautiful area with minimum noise, minimum congestion, minimum possibilities of accidents, and you'll have a perfect network. The 20, the 75, the City Link can all go Fanshawe.
So that means that everyone in the Wynyard Quarter can no longer get the 7-minute bus to Britomart?
I don't understand that point, because what will happen is they hop on the tram to Victoria Park and hop on the bus.
But at the moment they can just catch one bus that takes 7 minutes.
I would say that they would be still 7 minutes.
Okay, but
Okay, no, I think we'll
Getting a
just
bit
keep moving if you don't mind,
detailed.
Councillor. Councillor Desley-Simpson.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for your presentation. As a grandmother who goes down there with grandchildren, your drivers are fantastic. They're great with the children. I just wanted to say that. Look, I don't know whether you've read our report. I just want to ask you one question. In point 14 on our report, in the second sentence, it says that the Panuku board and staff have engaged with the supporter groups and have considered, analysed and have peer reviewed the costs of all the options put on the table. Are you saying that sentence is incorrect?
I can answer this one.
Yeah, go on.
There has been no best practice engineering peer review of Panuku's option 2, and Panuku has not adopted any of the peer review recommendations for option 3. So
They are not listening to us.
So the key ingredient here is, yes, they have had it peer reviewed, but it's a bit like saying, well, hi, I'm Panuku Developments, I want to buy a car. Well, here's a price range, you're going to spend between $70,000 and $200,000. Thank you very much. I'll go to another dealer, he'll tell me the same thing. What they really need is a station wagon, is going to cost them $50,000.
Okay.
So, in other words, the peer review, the way they've done it is they've gone to a quantity surveyor without giving them any details other than we need to relocate a tram barn and said, give us a figure, which is where the $6.6 million figure comes from, which is ludicrous because if you can't tell them where it is, you can't design the road, you can't design the rail, you can't design the overhead, so therefore you can't quantify what they're supposed to be putting a price on. All they can do is go, here's a figure, that's about right, try that.
We violently disagree with that sentence.
I think your follow-up question should be put to Panuku when they come, Councillor. Deputy Mayor Bill Cashmore.
Thanks, gentlemen. The capacities on the buses on 20 and number 20, number 75 can be handled by your tram?
That's a good question. I haven't investigated that. Have you?
I can answer that. The strange but true, the current design of buses that we have now brings us up to exactly the same that a heritage tram could handle in 1908. So when they replaced the trams with buses, they actually decreased the capacity of the transport network because a tram can handle about 108 people. That's a fairly simple, that's a heritage tram, not a modern one.
Okay, thank you. Last question, Mike Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for the presentation. Could I ask a question of Puneet? Puneet, I understand you're a businessman, a successful businessman. You're a contemporary, modern-day Aucklander. Why are you so passionate about Auckland's past and trams and heritage trams and so on? Why?
Sir, I've made Auckland my home. I've been here 10 years and it's one of the best cities on earth. It really is.
What do you mean, one?
The best city. I am here, so sorry.
We accept that correction.
And I guess I have recently become a father and I see what's going on, like all of us, climate change and the issues around consumption. And I look at what happened in 1956 and the disruption that was made of a really good working network. And I see that the cities of the future are not just the cities with the biggest, brightest buildings. They're going to be the cities with the healthiest lungs. And it's our heritage and it's the things that we preserve that will lead our children to be able to live well tomorrow. And that's my motivation as a father.
Thank you. That's a very good answer. Look, I'll move that we receive and note the public input presentation from Puneet Dahl and Jeff Gribben. And thank you both for your attendance. Seconder for that is Councillor Fletcher. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. Carried. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for a very good presentation.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Sorry, Your Honour, I just wanted to confirm that you do have a copy of this, which is a point by point.
Yes, I think everybody received that. And if you haven't, see Jeff and you'll get a copy off him. I'm sure he's got spares.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, has this been included in the record of the meeting?
The booklet. We've all just received the booklet as well. I think that
this will be attached to the minutes?
That was delivered to us. I'm not sure whether it needs to be attached to the minutes.
Would be useful.
But we've all got copies, which is the most useful thing. Right. We